We see them all the time standing at intersections or freeway off-ramps holding signs. Signs that say, please help, I've lost my job, homeless, hungry. Sometimes they're young men, sometimes they're more weathered by life. Certainly women are well represented. And the question always is, when you see that, what do you do? What do you do? And I think most of us try to very quickly assess the person based on just physical appearances to see if they're for real. Are they really in need, or are they just scamming us? The problem for me is I know an awful lot of them. I've tried to help them over the years. Most of them are addicted to something that drives them to desperation. Some are mentally ill. And I usually don't give them money, but I usually roll down the window and holler at them. And when they see me, they usually put their head down and hide the sign. I tell them, why don't you come and see me, and we could talk about getting you help again. One of the reasons I don't give them money is because I've seen it many times, is they do get money, and that money is for their next hit of cocaine or dope or alcohol, and it's sometimes their last drink, their last drug, because they die, they overdose. And I don't want to be complicit in all of that. But they do pose for us a challenge, because what really constitutes help for these people? I think deep down inside they know what they want. They know it's not just about feeling better, taking the edge off. It's about finding lasting peace. And it can be hard for them to get to that point. And sometimes they simply need to be asked, what is it that you really want? What is it that you really need? Is it really the next drink? Is it really the next drug? Or is it something more, something better? So today in the gospel we meet Bartimaeus, the blind man begging on the road. He didn't have a sign as the people on the freeway exits do, but he was shouting very loudly, and it was very bothersome to the disciples, because they had a mission. They were heading to Jerusalem, and they figured this was where Jesus would reveal his glory, and they would enter into his kingdom once for all. And so, just like us, they tried to avoid eye contact with the man. They tried to silence him, pretend he wasn't there. But it's almost as if, sometimes you're trying not to look, and next thing you look up and there is the person right there next to your car with the sign in your window. So Bartimaeus breaks through. He's able to get Jesus' attention, and Jesus calls him. And he asked a very simple question, what do you want? What do you want? That's a really important question. Do we really know what we want? Are we ready to give an answer if asked? Now contrast that question to last week's gospel, where James and John went to Jesus, and Jesus said, what is it that you want? And their reply was, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you. As I said last week, they were in the wrong spiritual space. They weren't in what the Bible describes as the space that opens us to the will of God. Bartimaeus, on the other hand, seems ready to accept Jesus' answer. And he simply says, I want to see, I want to see. Now, certainly he could accept the physical healing. That's certainly what he wanted. But it seems that he was ready to accept the deeper spiritual healing, which meant spiritual insight. And as we hear in the gospel, he does, because we're told from that point on, he follows Jesus on the way. He follows Jesus on the way. He becomes a disciple, a follower. He finds true sight, true salvation. He finds faith. And faith, Mark is telling us, is open to all. And often it's the unexpected people who seem to have it most strongly. And faith consists not least in recognizing who Jesus is and trusting he has the power to rescue. You know, if you read the Bible, even if all you hear is the readings on Sunday after Sunday, one thing you'll hear again and again and again and again and again and again and again is Jerusalem, Israel, the land, Jerusalem, Israel, the land. One of the central themes of the Bible is that God would gather his people. As we hear in the first reading from the prophet Jeremiah, they were coming to the end of the period of exile in Babylon. Jeremiah foretold that God would gather his people again, bring them back to the land where they would once again worship their God. And Mark paints Jesus in that same light. Jesus is going about gathering the people, particularly the people who were excluded from worship, like the blind. They could not participate in temple worship. So Jesus was healing them. They were following. They were headed up the road to Jerusalem, where they would give right worship, right praise to God. And so with faith, Bartimaeus gets all this, and he follows Jesus and begins to worship God correctly. Now, this little chapter of Mark is quite beautiful, and it's a good reflection for us to use during the week when we have time to spend some meditative time with it, to look at it. And so, as you do, if you can take that time this week, take some time and imagine yourself in the crowd that day in Jericho. It's a hot, dry, and dusty. You're excited, you're with Jesus, and you're going up to Jerusalem where something big is about to happen. And now, as you walk, here is someone shouting from the roadside. First, it's a nuisance. It's possibly even dangerous because if enough people call Jesus Son of David, someone in authority might get alarmed. So examine your own feelings as you hear that blind man shouting. Does he make you uncomfortable? When else have you had that uncomfortable feeling? Then fix your eyes on Jesus. Jesus is never put off by what annoys his followers, just as we saw a few weeks ago when the children came to Jesus. So Jesus turns to speak to the blind man. And now, stopping the whole journey to Jerusalem, how do you feel about that? It's a big interruption in the plan. Do you want this beggar to be part of the party? Do you want him to be part of your group? How about when Jesus speaks warm and welcoming words to him? Is that uncomfortable? Is that odd? Are you willing to speak the same? Has he ever spoken to you like that? How do you feel as you set off up the hill with this now healed man to Jerusalem together? Another way to look at it is to imagine yourself as the blind man. You know, we all have something, by no means necessarily a physical ailment, something that we know is getting in the way of being the people who we believe God wants us to be and made us to be. And so sit by the roadside, listen to the crowd passing by, and examine your own feelings. When you discover that it's Jesus passing by, are you excited? Do you feel excluded? And then, like the blind man, call out to him, and when he summons you, put everything aside, as Bartimaeus did, and go to him. Mark tells us that Bartimaeus got up, left his cloak, which was where he gathered, I'm sure, the coins that people gave to him. He was willing to put the life of a beggar aside and take on a new life. And then when Jesus asks, what do you want him to do? How do you respond? And don't look back at the small, selfish comforts of victimhood in your life. Ask for freedom. Ask for salvation. And when you get it, be prepared to follow Jesus wherever he goes next. The final challenge in this meditation, can you have the courage to think through the story from Jesus' point of view?
Like what you just heard? Visit Our Lady of Mount Carmel's social media pages for more faith-filled content. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Read the OLMC Tempe blog. Your Catholic community is online. Let's stay connected.